Hello, everybody. Today's discussion concerns the student loan debate. Now, we're all familiar with what student loans are. They've enabled millions of people over the years to go to college. And generally, student loans mostly fall into two categories, that is, public or private student loans. Now, the public student loan side is still coming from private institutions, but it is secured by the federal government, meaning that it has a fixed interest rate that cannot exceed a certain amount. Currently, that rate's 6.7%, which is well below industry average. But the federal government stepping in and securing loans in that way is really the only reason private institutions would make those loans to individuals, because those loans are what we call unsecured loans. That is, there's no collateral backing them up, so they are very risky loans that they will not be repaid, thus the institution will lose its money. Now, the federal government backs the loan, saying if the individual does not repay the loan, that the federal government would repay the loan. Then, of course, the individual who did not repay would have a debt to the federal government, which cannot be wiped away. Just like taxes, it survives bankruptcy. So, with that being said, you have the public sector student loans. Now, some of those student loans as well, you can say, are subsidized by the federal government, meaning that while you are in school and you are taking out the loans, you do not pay interest on those loans. And that's generally for lower income individuals or individuals with special circumstances such as disabilities. But with that being said, it's a great benefit that allows individuals to go to college. Now, private student loans are similar in nature, but they are not backed up by the federal government, and generally they have a far higher interest rate that is required on the loan. That is, it's not capped by that federal rate. It represents more closely akin to what the market rate is for a loan of that risk rate. So you could see 10, 12, even 14% interest rates on these loans. And these are the type of loans often taken out by parents in addition to the federal loans. So students take out these loans by filling out the federal application for financial aid, called the FAFSA. And this goes through, once again, the Department of Education. Now, the Department of Education is at the moment being deconstructed. That is, it is the agenda of the current executive administration to do away with that department. Well, this function of student loans will likely be transferred over to another agency to administer. It remains to be seen which agency, and it remains to be seen which loan programs remain, the extent to which there will be subsidies, the extent to which there will be caps on the loans for college. So here's the question for debate. Are student loans worth it today in time, what we're seeing? Now, in prior videos, we've talked a great deal about the changing nature of the workforce, but we've also talked about the nature of universities or colleges serving largely human resource functions. And because of this, students feel compelled to go through these institutions if they want to get a good job or enter into the career field that they desire. So it's almost a prerequisite that students go through the process of taking out student loans and things like that to continue their education in order to be a successful professional or whatever they deem to be desirable for their life goal or career outcome. Now, there's of course a second discussion to be had as to whether higher education of this form should be paid, that is, whether it should be charged to individuals or whether it should be free and open as it is in many other countries to those who simply meet the requirements to go there, or that is to enroll in the university. So just to quickly recap and paint a picture of the current scenario we see, schools are acting more and more as an HR function. Employers see college graduates as being the minimum qualification for so many jobs, even if the job does not relate to what the individual studies in undergraduate. It's just the general acquisition of education that the employers are looking for in terms of hiring a well-rounded individual. So with that being said, there's still that important HR function that schools carry out for society, but they do it at a very heavy cost. Now, most of the payments made to academic institutions each year aren't made from the students directly. It's made through financial aid granting institutions. So the money is being transferred to the school, and the student has the obligation to pay this back in the future. Now, if the student actually has an understanding of how much they're going to have to pay back and the cost that it's going to occur then for many years to come post graduation and into the workforce, they would be able to make a seemingly logical decision or be able to weigh the pluses and minuses of taking the student loans versus pursuing a different route to education. And of course, there are educational institutions that can provide high quality education. And of course, we've talked about that an individual can get as much out of education as they desire, and most of that is free, and there are low-cost options as well in the form of junior colleges, state colleges, technical schools, things of that nature, which will certainly train you in the skills. It will also give you the credential you need in terms of having a college degree. Now, it likely misses a lot of the other functions such as networking and the brand power of certain universities, particularly your more elite or high-level universities. But the reality is this: there are other options for education, meaning that you can get a lower cost education and incur far less student loan debt than going to some of your premier universities that cost a lot more than these state universities or community colleges or technical schools and things of that nature. So once again, my question is this: do you see a shift in whether individuals should consider other routes, or whether it's more valuable or advantageous to them to pursue other routes that cost less money, that will require less incursion of debt or fewer student loans in order to obtain their career objectives? And if this is the case, how is this going to affect public universities that receive state and federal funding but also depend on these high tuition levels from students in order to survive, in order to keep the school functioning in its current capacity? That is, as the alternative options for education become more prevalent and they become lower cost to the individual, will this, or how will this affect the traditional academic institution? Also, there's the question to be asked: should student loan lenders and should the federal government back up student loans to pay the high cost of these academic institutions, particularly private schools that can be $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in tuition each academic year? Should the federal government be, one, subsidizing, two, providing a surety or a guarantee for individuals to take out those type of loans to go to these universities? Or is it more beneficial or equitable to the populace, or in the best interest of the student, for the government to cap the amount of money that they will pay based upon the cost of viable alternatives that do not have the extreme or heavy cost associated with many of these top tier or private universities? So that's my question for you today. If you have thoughts, if you have comments, jump down in the comments section, go over to thebusinessprofessor.com, start a discussion. But regardless, I hope to see you around the platform soon. Until then, take care.